Last hour, we spoke with the chair of the California Reparations Task Force, Camila Moore. The task force attempted to analyze the legacy of slavery and other discrimination in both the state of California as well as nationwide.
That's right. And in its final report, the task force delivered 115 recommendations. But as Moore explained to us, it did not specify a final figure on how much each person would get or how they intend to pay for it.
This effort is not about individual guilt. It's not about making white people feel guilty. This is a conversation around state responsibility, and our recommendations are framed in that way. It's not to be punitive in nature to any group.
And joining us now is our panel, the host of Money Talk with Melanie, Project 21 member Melanie Collette, lawyer and GOP strategist Ford O'Connell, and Bill Spadea is back with us. I said goodbye a little bit too early, and I apologize.
All right.
All right, Melanie, I know that earlier you said, gosh, I really wanted to talk about this, so here's your chance.
I did. So this is a completely unrealistic from a policy perspective on its face. That's the first thing. They're saying that it's not punitive, but it is. And they're saying that it's a state issue, right? So the state has to pay for it. And my key issue with this is that the state is the people. It is punitive when you have, and they really don't seem, the people who support this don't seem to understand that it is your tax dollars, that your taxes will necessarily go up if you were to do a kind of program like this. And the other thing is the logistics. You know, will black people who are descendants of people who sold slaves to the people who brought them to the Americas, well, because those were black people that sold them in Africa. So if you were a descendant of those people, do you have to pay or no? How does this whole thing work? As Katrina brought up earlier about whether or not you're biracial, you can have I have Irish in my blood. You would never know, but I do. So do I pay like 13% or whatever the percent of white blood, and then do I get like 87% reparation? I don't mean to be silly, but it is really silly, and it is punitive, even though they're saying that it isn't. And it's a giant virtue signal, which is my biggest problem with it.
Yeah, I think it goes.
They have no intentions on doing that.
Right, and I don't know where it's going, but it's going to be politically popular to some people, Ford. But like Melanie was pointing out, to pay for any program that's attached to this, including paying people they think should directly get reparations, if that's what they conclude, the government of California does not have a business. The government taxes you. That's its business. So it would come from taxes in the state of California.
Well, let's put a fine point on this. I think Melanie's absolutely right. From a policy perspective, this is a nightmare. It's never actually going to happen. It's really the political angle here that the Democrats are focused on. They've been talking about reparations in California for more than a decade. And the reason why the California Democratic Party does that is because they want to keep black folk voting as a monolith for Democrats in California. Look, Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, is against this. He's trying to slow walk this because essentially, if they even tried to pay this out as they suggest, and we know it would go completely wrong because people would be stealing and everything else, it would be 3.5 times the current California budget. And if California was a country, it'd be the 9th largest country in the world. It is impractical, improbable, and it's never going to fix the problem of America's original sin, which is slavery.
Yeah, and I want to kind of pivot just a little bit here, Bill. Also, that the Washington Post is reporting that Native Americans are now calling for reparations from what they describe as land grab universities. That's one thing. And also that Ben and Jerry's kind of not patriotic tweet we shared. The hits keep on coming. Now, of course, the ice cream maker sent out this controversial tweet on July 4th calling for all stolen land to be returned, speaking of Native Americans. And a Vermont Native American chief says the company's headquarters actually sits on stolen land, the Abenaki tribe. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. The chief, Don Stevens, says he's completely open to discussing this with the ice cream gurus. Again, I think it is also, where does it end? Once it begins.
Well, there's no end in sight. I mean, when you're virtue signaling, when this is all about dividing people, and let's go back into history and find every person that was wronged, and then let's pay for it in today's dollars. It's outrageous. What about the lynchings that took place in Louisiana against Italian Americans? Are there reparations there as well? I mean, where would it end? It has to, in my opinion, it has to start somewhere. And what we ought to be looking at is not the past ills, but the current ills. Who is going to come up with a proposal to fix our inner cities where kids can't get an education, where drug gangs and violence reign supreme? Who's going to stand up for our cops and our teachers? I mean, to me, if they really want to solve a problem, there are plenty of problems today that we need to solve. And you know what? Money's not going to solve all of them. A lot of it is mindset. And the only reason you have Gavin Newsom against this is he wants to be president and he knows it's too radical.
Melanie, 15 seconds, final word.
I just want to be clear that there are black people living in other places other than the city. In Cape May County, which is not a city, it's beautiful. There are plenty of people that look like me. And the school system, just like many public school systems, could use some improvement. And we should definitely start there, I agree.
Melanie Collette, Ford O'Connell, Bill Spadea, thank you so much.